Clinical Consultation Network. We do this every Tuesday at 12:30. Actually, we don't start until 12:35, but we do it. We ostensibly start at 12:30, and so in any case, we've got a wonderful case today to discuss. This is a fellow that has the pseudonym Ronnie that we're going to be talking about today, and Ronnie has Phelan-McDermid syndrome. Also has autism spectrum disorder, and if you're not aware, those two kind of go together a lot of the times. He is living in an ICF facility, made some great progress due to a collaboration of an entire interdisciplinary team that is here with us today. And I'm so happy when we can have interdisciplinary teams. And we always want to hear from individual clinicians too, but I love to hear where people have worked together to solve a problem or to help someone. And so today we have the behavior analyst, Sarah Burke. We also have the physical therapist for Ronnie is Beth McLean. And so we have a speech and language pathologist, Rita Pfeiffer, and a dietitian, Cindy Charlton. I think we may also have on the line with us today Adele McKissick, who is the home manager, and the program director, who is Tremitris. If I pronounced that name correctly. What is Tremitris' last name?
Howard T.
Okay. So, welcome, guys. And I understand, Sarah, you're going to kick us off here with a presentation, and then I suppose everybody's going to kind of just jump in and contribute.
Yes, I'm going to kind of start off and just give everybody intro and background information for Ronnie, and then the team members I work with are going to kind of jump in during their part, and I've kind of told them to chime in whenever they want to add to whatever I'm saying.
So now before you do that, though, I want you to I've introduced you by name, but I want you to introduce yourself, give a 1-minute summary of who you are, how you came to be where you are now, and one interesting fact about yourself.
Okay.
We'll start with you.
Okay. So I'm a behavior analyst on the team. I was a psychology major in undergrad and worked in an autism research lab, and that kind of sparked my interest for working with individuals with autism. My supervisor there told me about a grad school program in Tennessee that brought me out here, where I received a master's in early childhood special education, and I also took my coursework for my BCBA there. I taught as a special education teacher for 4 years, and then I've provided behavior services for the past 2 years, and I've had my BCBA for about 6 years now.
Okay. And so one interesting fact about...
Okay. I think that what I typically go to... I grew up horseback riding and dirt bike riding. My hand-eye coordination is awful, and so sports with bowls never worked out. So horseback riding and dirt bike riding was my childhood.
All right, very good. So then, Beth, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Beth McLean. You have to take yourself off mute. Is Beth being shy?
I don't think so. They just sound shy.
That was her a minute ago. She didn't sound shy. Well, let's try Rita. Rita, we'll come back to Beth in a minute.
The bad news is I think they're all on the same call.
Well, that could be bad. Might be doing this solo today.
Make sure you unmute yourself on WebEx and your phone, just in case.
Okay. How about Adele? Are you on the phone, Adele?
I had a few other webinars today. A lot of people were having a lot of technical difficulties with Jabber and with the WebExes, so.
Okay, well that might be the problem. Tremitris, are you on the phone?
I am on the phone. Can anybody hear me?
Okay, who have we got here?
This is Tremitris Howard T. Yeah, you can hear me.
All right, very good. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. I am the program director for Middle Tennessee Homes. I've worked for Middle Tennessee Homes now going on 4 years. But previously, before that, I worked for DHS as an evaluator. And I also actually started off in BIDD working at Clover Bottom back in 2004. I have my master's in counseling and psychology, and truly love what I do. One interesting fact I can think of is about a few years ago, I just went on a limb and started taking Taekwondo. And took that for about a year and a half. Earned a couple of belts, and very few people know that I know a little bit about martial arts. So.
Okay, well, so next time I see you, we can trade moves because I take karate also. My grandson taught me into taking karate about 6 months ago, and it's been the greatest thing. Actually, it's probably been about 10 months ago now. I keep thinking 6 months, but it's been actually 10 months. But I've learned a lot and gotten in real good shape doing that. So I'm sure you probably experienced
Yes, the workout regimen for that is
wonderful. Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm very interested to learn more about that. So were Beth and Rita and Cindy able to come on with us, or Adele? Okay, well, Sarah, I think probably the best thing for us to do at this point is to let you go ahead and get started. And then if they're able to join us a little bit later, as they come on, I'll just ask them to introduce themselves.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm going to start. Let's see. Okay. With just an introduction, giving some background information on Ryan. He is a male adult, 26 years old. And as you said earlier, he does have a diagnosis of Galen impairment syndrome. The characteristics of this specific genetic disorder typically are developmental delay, moderate to severe intellectual impairment, absent or severely delayed speech, and then neonatal hypotonia. So difficulty with gross motor skills, especially when they're younger, learning how to stand, walk, etc. His sister also has this diagnosis as well. And like you said earlier, he also has a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, and about 50% of individuals with Galen-Impairment syndrome also either have similar traits to individuals with autism or an actual ASD diagnosis. So he does have both. Some background information on Ryan is he did live with his family before he moved to his current setting where he is now. He was beforehand. So we were seeing somebody who was having to change to completely different routine, new people at a later stage in life. He did attend school until the age of 22. And he does have a history of challenging behaviors. We'll get to this later, but these behaviors were observed when he moved to his current setting, and then they were also seen at his home, his school, and then also out in the community before he moved to his current setting. And then there are also reports of inconsistent sleep schedule. He typically would initiate to lay down only for short periods of time, and he never really slept through the night. I did include this just because we all know that when your sleep is negatively impacted, that can have huge impact on, functioning throughout the day, behaviors, agitation, all that fun stuff. So that was important to note as well because that has also changed for the better.
Oh, okay. That's interesting to hear. So during that time, though, he generally, you say rarely slept throughout the night. So he was just pretty much every night he was having trouble.
Yeah, and I also want to note here too, so I have been working with him for a little under a year now, and the behavior analyst who's working with him before me is the one who kind of transitions him in. So some of what I'm going to be speaking to today is my review of the historical information and talking with the team, some members of the team. I know our dietitian and our physical therapists have worked with him since he was admitted, and then also the house manager and the program director have worked with him since he was admitted as well. But now, I mean, it's my understanding that he sleeps through the night pretty well, but when he did come in, there was a report with him. His sleep was very inconsistent for him. Okay, so he was admitted to his current intermediate. He's in an intermediate care facility, and he was admitted in November 2017. The ratios in his setting for individual to staff are 4-to-1. So when he's in the home, he can typically be in the home with 3 other people and 1 staff member. However, this does change when he's eating during meals for safety reasons, and I'll dive into that in a little bit. And then also, for safety reasons, it's a 1-to-2 ratio, meaning that he has to be with 2 staff members when he's out and about in the van and walking around in the community, and we'll kind of dive into why we need those standards.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm recalling or if I just thought this for some reason. Is this person a pretty active person?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, and he's actually visited your farm, and I'll kind of get into that, but he's the one that you brought out, and he got to hang out with the horses for a little bit.
Yeah, okay, I remember now.
Yeah. So he does live with 3 other roommates, and so I kind of did that because while his ratios are specific for him, he can also be affected by the ratios of others as well. So the people that he lives with and the support that they have. And my point of that is that he typically is in the house with at least 2 to 3 to 4 staff members. Sometimes there can be 1, but he usually has more than that. Can y'all hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Usually intervenes pretty quickly when there's a little background noise, so just continue. If you have to pause briefly, just pause and she'll take care of it, or you can just talk. Perfect.
And then he also does receive supports and consultative services from occupational therapists, dietitian, physical therapist, behavior analyst, speech language pathologist, and then the psychiatrist who's Dr. Schuler. Okay, so
I just noticed that Dr. Schuler is on the line today too, so if he has commentary he wants to provide, we welcome that as well.
Yes, and he gets the slides, so maybe he'll comment during that too.
Okay, good.
So I'm putting the challenging behaviors first because I kind of wanted to paint a picture of what Ronnie's life looked like when he was first admitted to the current setting. Staff did report a number of challenging behaviors that they were concerned about, mainly because it was impacting his daily living, his levels of independence that we could allow, and then also safety was a huge concern. So self-injurious behaviors were observed pretty immediately upon admission. This included him biting at his hand. There was also disruptive behaviors that were reported. This looked like him possibly growling while biting at his hands, and then also he would vocalize pretty loudly while he would kind of be jumping around the house and flapping his hands. Elopement happened both outside. He would leave designated areas, so he would leave his house, or he would. There was one specific incident where he tried to jump out of the van that they were in. It had been parked and everything in a parking lot, but then the staff had difficulty having him come back or stay within the parameters that they were setting for him when he was in the community, which was pretty concerning. And then physical aggression. The main aggressive act that he engaged in was pinching. And so you'll see on the graph there that was one that happened at a pretty high frequency just on one day. And I think that was an isolated incident which happened within like a 20-minute period. Once again, I did not do this assessment, the VA before me did, so this is mainly just me reviewing the information and the work that she did. And then property disruption was him usually banging his hands on the table. And then the mealtime concern, he would, when he was presented with food, he would just shove food into the mouth with his hands. He wouldn't use utensils. He would chew too fast. He wouldn't take smaller bites. There were just big safety concerns there too around behaviors that happen during mealtime as well.
So these data were taken over what about a 1 month?
About a month.
Yeah, and I'm just going to notice this right now. Maybe you're going to talk about this later or not. If I'm asking you to respond now, but one thing I'm noticing is that there's a lot of days in between the episodes where there doesn't seem to be much happening.
Exactly, and behaviors decrease pretty quickly, and I do think it's difficult, and I wasn't there during this specific assessment, but when you're admitting somebody, you're completing your behavior assessment, you're taking ADP data, but you're also intervening and trying to keep the individual safe. And so one of the plans that I'm going to specifically talk about, and hopefully Beth can kind of time and figure out the situation, but my understanding from her is that they had to intervene pretty quickly on the elopement because of the concerns. And so I do think that the interventions that were put in place also do affect that data as well. We try and not intervene as much as possible, but it's my understanding, especially during this assessment, that interventions needed to be put into place for safety, and that a lot of that interdisciplinary work led to these behaviors decreasing. I also wanted to note that the staff who works in the home has experience of working with individuals who have challenging behaviors such as physical aggression, and they're phenomenal. And so a lot of just the natural way that they are used to responding to behaviors, I think could have naturally shaped that as well, without necessarily needing the coaching and the intervention that you might need if this is new to you.
Okay.
And I would actually also say this now, because we're going to dive into different plans later, but I don't consult on him as far as the behavior support plan goes, because the VA at the time didn't recommend one. He does have behavior guidelines, but because the behaviors did decrease to pretty minimal levels towards the end of the assessment, what we have in place is working. And so I more so consult in different areas, such as with the speech language pathologist on functional communication, training with a physical therapist on expanding parameters to keep him safe when he's out and about in the community. So that's kind of what my involvement looks like. Okay, let's see here. So as far as the functions goes, the primary functions for the behaviors that were determined in the assessment was access to attention and then access to preferred items or activities. Typically what it looks like is he would be attempting to access a preferred activity or preferred item that would possibly impact his safety. So, for example, eloping, trying to go outside, and then that would be interrupted, he would be redirected, and the attention would be provided there. So that's kind of what the antecedents and the consequences look like in the assessment, to my understanding, but the primary functions were attention and tangible, which is important to note going forward in providing intervention in all areas later on. So I wanted to note that as well.
Just to clarify that a little bit, so he's wanting people to interact with him, or it appears that he is doing this in order to get people to engage with him, or to get something physical that he could have.
Exactly, and it's specifically around mealtime too. If you look there, staff will sometimes be making food, and so attention is kind of naturally withheld, and then he would engage in the behavior, and then the attention would be provided in the form of redirection. So exactly, it typically happened around attention and also trying to, get things that he wanted.
Right. What were some of the things that he wanted in those circumstances?
He is very motivated through food, and then he really likes to go outside. That's a huge reinforcer for him. He explores the outdoors, so typically staff will take him to the park and walk around with him. His family, so he lives at home, like I said, before he came here, and he still goes home on the weekends. And he, from our understanding, I think he just was outside all day. I think he played with his dog. And so he had pretty unlimited exposure to being outside, and the parameters of that changed when he moved. And it's not that he doesn't get to go outside, it's just that now the safety of that has changed because their environment looks different from the environment he's in now. So it's been reacting to that and teaching him how to access that, but in a safer way. Okay, so I'm going to go into talking about the plans that the team put into place and the interdisciplinary collaboration that happened for these plans to be put into place, and kind of just the core values that we're looking at when we are putting plans into place with the team. And first and foremost, it's creating structure for him or for the individuals who are working with him their day. So creating a routine, creating something that they can trust, a system that they can understand and expect, and it's pretty routine. I have consistency in there. There's 3 shifts of staff who work with him. So he has a first shift in the morning towards the afternoon, second shift in the afternoon into the evening, and then third shift throughout the evening. And so it's making sure that everybody is on the same page. There's meals that happen during each of those shifts. There's self-care routine that happens during each of those shifts. So it's coming in and making sure that training is happening across the board. Person-centered is huge, making sure that we have his wants and his needs in the forefront of those plans. So, for example, we know that he enjoys going outside, and food is a huge motivator. So kind of using these reinforcers and these activities that he enjoys to benefit him in these plans as well. Training is huge, obviously. We realize, especially working with staff, that education is important, really helping staff who are working with him understand why something's needed. For example, functional communications training, the speech language pathologist and I are working on that with staff right now, and helping them understand the background of that and the expressive communication there and what's needed and why is that needed. And the great part with that is the collaboration that can happen. Ms. McKissick, the house manager who works with him, she actually is the one who, and I'll dive into this later, but she helped us come up with the specific, use a picture exchange system with him for functional communication, and she's the one who came up with the specific visuals that she thinks that he would understand and be able to communicate with. So that allows for collaboration, and then modeling it for staff, coaching them through it, and then just checking in and consulting with them and seeing if we need to dive deeper into specific routines or, talk about the successes and why they're successes. And then co-creating for us is huge as well, and that's kind of basically the theme of the presentation today. I'm going to go back to the functional communication training example, but the SLP and I can work together and working with the staff and training them, and then what's really cool is we can kind of tag team and go back on different weeks and provide consistent training and feedback and maximize our resources to the best of our abilities. And then developing relationships. I can't speak enough to how important it is. Like the staff who work with him have really created very strong relationships. I'll say that when I go out and about with him, he chooses to be with them. He wants to be closer to them. He trusts them. He knows them. And so as providers, when we're working with him, getting to know him better through our observations, also through staff, and asking them about him and what they think and what's going on, and making sure that our relationships with staff are there and that they can trust us to, problem solve with them, and that we're getting their feedback instead of just telling them what we think. So
that's such an important point that you're making right there, because I was making a point last week, because the direct support professionals are the key, really, to understanding everything that's going on, because they have all the information. And, that's your job, really, is to mind them to understand the person better.
Absolutely. And I mean, they support us so much. I mean, I can come in and I can see a certain behavior happening. I can talk to them, and in 5 minutes, I can get a pretty good picture of the past week and what they've been seeing and what's been going on. That might take a lot longer for me to sit there and observe it. And I still observe, but it's invaluable, the information that they give us. It's gold.
I've had this experience over and over throughout my career. I can come up with a really great plan, but if I don't have the direct support professionals in sync with that, it's not gonna work. And so you really have to take their input into account when you develop something.
Yeah, and at the beginning of it too, I mean, there's times we can kind of sometimes see hesitancy in their eye, and talking to them about it before even putting anything into place. Because sometimes, not even sometimes, most of the time, the thoughts of why something might not work are typically right. So I might talk about if there's sometimes Ronnie will engage in chewing behaviors where he's very fixated on chewing his strips, and so we're trying to find replacement items for him right now and more durable items. And Zach can honestly look at something and be like, yes, no, yes. And honestly, we'll try it out, and he'll chew through something in a second, and they're like, yep, he figured that one works. And then the one that does, he's really successful with. And so it helps with a lot of the brainstorming, absolutely.
That's great.
Okay, so I'm going to do one more test to see if the SLP, have they unmuted, do you think, Michelle, or are they? Because I can put that on their plans if you want.
I know that they called back in to see if that was.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to intro this, and then I think Rita's going to take over. So for the mealtime challenges, I kind of already talked a little bit about what the behaviors we were seeing in the beginning, but the OT and dietitian actually collaborated on a plan in the beginning, and now the speech language pathologist has started to play a huge part in that as well. So Rita, if you're ready, I'm going to let you take this one.
Sure. This is Rita. I'm the speech pathologist in this setting, and historically the occupational therapist in the setting would oversee the mealtime and swallowing. But then since he retired recently, there's been shifts in roles, and so now I'm in charge of mealtime and swallowing concerns here. And so I'm similar to Sarah. A lot of this is kind of reviewing work that they have done previously and work with the dietitian as well. But a lot of this is, I think, it's a classic example about how setting up an appropriate structure and expectation for the people we support can be very successful for them. As Sarah noted, a lot of the concerns that we had with Ronnie during mealtime is just how quickly and somewhat impulsively he would go and eat food. Like, I think Cindy has a great story about how one of the first days, he had some potato chips and he had both hands going at the potato chips and just shoveling them in his mouth. And so, not only is that a concern for swallowing, it's also a concern for socially, like how do you sit at a table and enjoy the meal and be able to engage and interact with the people around you. And so a lot of the strategies that were put into place really were to help with him being able to slow down, eat safely, and enjoy the meal at the same time, kind of like the meal pragmatics of that. And so the biggest thing that, staff did a beautiful job with, which is having the expectation that instead of standing and eating the meal, you have to sit down at the table in order to get the food that you want. And that seemed to be pretty successful, especially because staff were so, understood the need, and the staff was concerned about it too, because not only with the mess, but also with, everyone running around. And I think because we were all on the same page that this was a concern, it was pretty fluid to follow through with that expectation with Ronnie. And pretty soon after that, he was able to sit at the table and have the expectation that every time I eat, I have to sit at the table. So that was just pretty successful there.
Seems like the environment you were describing there would be ripe for a choking issue. A choking concern. So you talk about it being a really loud, kind of chaotic environment, and thinking the food, eating too fast, all of those things. Seems like you've got a real choking risk there.
Very much so, and that's why one of the strategies that was put into place was not having the entire meal at one point. It's like what we call controlled bite sizes. So what staff do is they have the whole plate of food on their end, and then Ronnie would have his own plate, and then staff would provide small bites of food onto his plate, which then he would eat. And so really kind of forced this environment where he had to eat slowly, or he could only eat a certain amount at a time. He would be able to eat all of the food, but he just don't provide it all at one time. And even though at this point he can still get very excited about food, I would say overall he's become much more calm, especially with the strategy in eating. I think before he would get so excited about food that he would jump up and down and run around. And even though he still gets excited, he understands that in order for me to actually eat this meal, I have to sit down. I have to slow down. And there's a set expectation that the food is going to come to me at set time, at which point I can then eat safely. And it's gotten to the point now that when he first came into the setting, he was on a ground diet because there was so much of a concern of him eating all of this so quickly without even chewing the food. And now he's gotten to a point where they've been able to upgrade his diet to a dice diet, which is a higher level. So he's able to actually enjoy and be safe with a higher grade of diet, which is the goal for him.
So in some ways, see, now I don't want to even, I've known about diced, versus ground food, of course, because I've worked in the field for a long time, but I never thought about that as a fading up to basically a typical mealtime experience. And that's what you're working towards, it sounds like.
Very much so. We want to be able to, allow Ronnie to be able to enjoy food, to the highest quality and texture possible, while also having him be safe. And I think one thing that our dietitian Cindy has done very well, which she can speak to more, is just also speaking about the, because you have someone like Ronnie who has such high energy needs. And so part of the concern of him eating so quickly is if he feels so hungry all the time that he feels like he has to eat all those foods, but.
Right. So, one of our goals is to prevent him from becoming overly hungry and making sure he was satisfied when he did have a meal. And this has been done by the staff providing his meals at consistent meal times. So he sort of knows, just like we do, it's almost lunchtime, it's almost breakfast time. And he'll go stand by the kitchen, and he really likes to watch his staff cook. The other thing we've done is provide double serving sizes for him. He is very young, he's very active, he burns a lot of calories. And compared to the other gentlemen that are in his own home that are much older and much less active, he requires double serving sizes. And then we also provide snacks and fluids between meals just to make sure that he's not getting hungry between meals if he wants them, they're available. And then lastly, his staff can give him extra servings. Sometimes he'll just sit at the table when his food is just about gone and just sort of look around. He might turn all the way around and look back in the kitchen like, hey, have y'all got anything else coming? So, and if he's done, if he's satisfied, usually before the last bite, he jumps up from the table and he's gone. But those are all things that we put into place just to make sure he's not becoming overly hungry and that he does have meal satiety.
Well, here's one thing I know from having been on weight loss diets, a lot of times throughout my life. One of the things that's recommended is to eat more slowly so that your stomach can catch up with your brain can catch up with your stomach. In other words, if you eat too quickly, you might still feel like you're hungry, but the message hasn't gotten to your brain yet that that you're full. And so that's one of the causes of overeating. It seems like you're slowing him down here. Probably helps him manage his anxiety about eating more effectively.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's very true.
So then, this is Beth. I'm the PT, and Sarah, are you ready for me to talk about how I got involved?
In 1 second, actually, I'm going to finish up with this. I just want to note really quickly just how I think it's great to plan how independent it's made him in eating too. He still is able to be the one who spoons his food, and then also the way that they modified, so for example, his spoon, how it's a handle that's bent. He has more success with the materials that they've given him as well, and so the mealtime at the table and the structure of it has actually now become more reinforcing for him. And then one step further, parents have actually reached out to staff because he's picked up on the weekend. They've talked to staff about how they've had a difficulty with getting him to sit and eat a meal when he's at home. He'll typically go home during the day and then come back that afternoon. And staff has actually been able to give feedback to the parents on the successes and the establishing that structure for him, and now parents have reported that he is successfully sitting down at home and eating meals as well. And so that's exciting too, to see that training transfer over.
Yeah, generalization. Love to see generalization.
Yeah. Great. So the next part is around another safety concern, which was that elopement piece, specifically him trying to jump out of the van whenever he got to a location. And this is where Beth is going to step in and talk about the transportation guidelines and the training that they did with staff. The behavior analyst worked with her at the behavior analyst at the time. I was not there when this was created, but worked with Beth, and so she's going to go into it.
Yeah, so the VA asked me to get involved after we had an elopement incident with Ronnie that was very alarming. Did not result in any injury or anything, but really got all of our attention that this was a potential with him. And then also, when she had watched him get in and out of the van, he is a relatively tall, very thin, very fast, very impulsively moving guy. And so as she watched him move, she was afraid he was going to fall. He has a really abnormal gait pattern where he turns his feet in a lot, and so he has to step over his toes as he walks, and he looks like he's about to trip all the time. So she was really worried just about his safety, and he had his own style he had developed. They were having him sit in the very back seat of a 3-seater minivan, and so he would leap from the back and come out so he's standing up on the running board. He would come out over the staff, kind of over their heads, and kind of dive out of the van. And so that's how he was starting any kind of outing. So she and I really worked through, we could recognize a couple of things. Number one, he had so much energy that he wasn't really having any opportunities to really get out this guy is kind of wired like he would get up and go for a run before he would do anything. And so we had to figure out how can we have an opportunity to just burn off some energy before we are asking that he listen to us, connect with us, and slow down. So it was like his engine was just revving all the time. So we had to address that. Then we had to address, okay, how can he go anywhere and be safe in a parking lot or near a road? Because obviously the staff, it's extremely scary for them. And so we had to address that in a real emergency kind of way. So he has had all through this time 2 staff available to go out with him. So he's 2 to 1 when he goes out. And that has been very helpful in being able to get the consistency we needed in the beginning and then transition him where Sarah can speak to this, but my understanding is that now he does not always have to be 2-on-1 because he's gained some skill in this. So the first things we did is we are next to a facility with fenced-in fields, so we could drive into a fenced-in area and then let him get out. That let me really spend time observing how he got in and got out, what his habits had become. And then we would just play games with him and let him run in a field. And he would jump and, enormous energy, really difficult for me to keep up with. And so then from that, we were able to develop a real stepwise systematic plan for the staff to follow and for him to start to learn about how we exit the van. And what was amazing to see is if we could just slow him down, then he would have a lot more eye contact and his response to the staff would be improved by 100%. If he was just all motion, there was no response to them. But as we just put things in place that were barriers that slowed him down, he really began to listen to them. And then this beautiful relationship and trust. They began to trust him, and he began to trust them. And so throughout how he's grown is he will listen to them when they say, slow down, stop, wait.
It seems to me an important part of that is this strategy you had of letting him expend some energy prior to having to do that, though. Kind of reduce the amount of work you have to do in that circumstance to help him learn these new skills. And your recognition of that, I would classify it as a neutralizing routine. You're basically neutralizing the problem so you can work with it a little bit more effectively. That's very impressive.
Well, it made a huge difference. And then what we kind of instituted with how he got out of the van was really just a system where the staff could work together so that they were really physically ready in case he did dive out of the van, that they were positioned in a way where they wouldn't get hurt, he wouldn't get hurt, or he would not exit the van without them in a state of readiness. And then we taught him to scoot from, and he's so physically able. And people who were a little more mobility compromised, some of this would not have worked. This guy amazes me with his physical agility. So he could sit down on the floor of the van, scrunch up in the back, and scoot out, and then sit on the outside of the van to sit beside a staff member. So that whole process slowed him down and let him connect with that staff person sitting on the side, and then a staff member who was waiting outside the van was there as reinforcement. And then where we started initially is that those staff people could then take him in a Sunday stroll position, one at each arm, while they were going through a parking lot, because we decided that was just prohibitively unsafe as we were working on things. And then the way we worked it out, the staff could safely shut the van door, lock the van, all the steps that needed to happen. And then we started working with them inside buildings in our facility structure, where we knew we had mostly locked doors and narrow hallways, and we started working with them on just maintaining walking between two staff. So instead of having to hold him in that Sunday stroll position, being able to understand that one staff is going to walk in front of you, one staff behind you, and when he would start to cross the front person, they would turn around, hold two hands up, and tell him to stop. And then once they had that connection with him again, then they would continue walking. So over the course of just maybe 3 or 4 weeks working on that routine, expending the energy, going through the steps of exiting the van, going into a controlled, familiar place, working in the hallways, then we were able to go to a public place, which shocked me, the immediate carryover. We had super brave BA. We were at a medical appointment that had gone really well, and she said, hey, let's go try this in Guitar Center. And I was like, wow, okay, let's do it. Okay. So we went to Guitar Center, and it went beautifully. And he was so happy to look at all the stuff in Guitar Center. The people in there shopping and working responded really favorably to him. And he never crossed that front staff. When they got to the end of a route, the staff would just turn around. So the staff who had been behind him would become the staff in front of him. And then they would just walk together. And they were able to kind of tell where he wanted to go. And nothing disruptive or negative happened at all. And then before we went back in the parking lot at the door, they just resumed that Sunday stroll position. And that was the glimmer to me of like, wow, he's going to really learn through this, and he's going to be able to go real places in the community that aren't just predictable, fenced-in, enclosed places.
Yeah, what I love about what you're talking about here, a couple of things. One is you pick discrete situations, very small situations, to try to work on instead of trying to do this across the whole day. These transitions were really an important piece of what you were doing. And so you practice those transitions over and over, making this something where you could get a lot of practice at it and could learn to do what needed to be done under those circumstances. And then also looking at the gradations of different interventions that you're doing. So you're starting out with this Sunday stroll, but eventually, you're backing off to more independence with these different things that you're doing until, your eventual goal would be to be completely independent. Whether or not he gets to that point, we don't know, but the further you can go with that, the better for him in the long run. So those are all really great things about what you're doing here.
And he really got to a point where the safety concerns were reduced enough that I faded out, and I consult with Sarah if she needs it. But she has really kind of carried on with him being out in the community, and I don't think anything safety compromising has happened at all. And then so now she's even really trying to see how can we continue to give him even better opportunities to connect with community. And that's where we really need ideas.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of, hopefully, if you have time at the end of this, maybe like open that up today with the people who might have ideas of things that we can continue to take in, because it's going back to the mealtime routine, talking about the experience of the meal, when you're changing the diet, when you see that he can be safer with a different, maybe more enjoyable diet for him. This is kind of the same concept of he's become super successful and staff has become super successful with this structure, and now it's seeing how far we can take it and still keeping him safe. So taking him to more remote locations, possibly without fences, we're working on these same strategies as well to continue to expose him to as many experiences as possible.
Yeah, I think you do want to build on success with that. I mean, you don't want to take him to a place that he knows just not going to go well. But if you can try to slowly kind of upgrade and keep it small enough that it's manageable, then you have the chance to expand. That's actually one of the things that gets in the way of success too often, is trying to do too much too quick with somebody, and then they fail at it and say, well, it's throw off our hands and say, well, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
These small steps that you're taking, you're able to see success and then move forward at a very slow pace, but at a steady pace.
Yeah, and still keeping the core parts of the plan in place. So, for example, we'll sometimes go to a more remote park without a lot of traffic, and we'll access the enclosed playground that has a fence area before we go on the walking path around the park, and work with him and getting that energy out, and before we're setting these expectations of, okay, you're going to follow and listen to the directions that we're going to give you now.
And the staff have been so great at reading him. So they, if you're on an outing with them, they can say, yeah, let's take it a little further. Today's a good day to try it. Or they'll say, nope, not feeling it today.
Yeah.
And they just know him throughout the day so much better. And their buy-in with all this is really, and their expertise that they've developed in executing it, has made all the difference in him continuing to grow as a skill.
Absolutely.
That is very interesting to bring that up, too, about staff being able to notice that. Because if I go back to and I'm not asking you to flip back to it, but the baseline graph that you showed initially showed that there were days where it was a lot more difficult to manage than there were days between where things seem to be going relatively well. And obviously staff who know him well have kind of recognized that pattern and are able to respond to that.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so I'm moving on to another success involves psychotropic medications, and if Dr. Schuler is on the line and wants to speak to this, I'm more than happy to have him do so. I don't know if he wants to chime in or not.
Yeah, I'll chime in. Do you want me to
just hearing his voice makes it feel wonderful, doesn't it?
Hey, look, as far as Ronnie's psychiatric medications is probably the least interesting thing in this discussion. He presented taking 4 psychiatric medications, yet he didn't have a diagnosis really to justify them. He had a diagnosis of autism, and the vast majority of people with autism, psychiatric medications are of no benefit. and actually can certainly cause some problems and side effects. For him, he was taking an antipsychotic and had gynecomastia, which is enlarged male breast. So we checked the prolactin level, and indeed his prolactin was high. So we had a good reason to reduce that medication, because you don't want your prolactin high for a long time. You can end up with some increased risk of cancers and osteoporosis. But anyway, having a good team like we do and accepting of medication reductions, we slowly tapered. We got rid of the risperidone, Prozac, lamotrigine. He's left on a little bit of melatonin, and we'll end up slowly getting rid of that also. We were going to do that, but we were interrupted by the COVID crisis. So, we were able to be successful in getting him off basically all of the psychiatric medications without any psychiatric problems kicking up.
Dr. Shirley, you're going to work yourself out of a job if you keep doing this.
I'm aiming everything toward my retirement.
That's very good. Thank you.
Okay, the final consent here as far as intervention goes, and we've I kind of already highlighted on this, and for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of go over this, and then I would like to see if anybody has just suggestions of, different programs or experiences we can look into after this pandemic hopefully passes and we can start taking Ronnie out into the community in a safe manner again. But the SLP and I work together on functional communication training. Primarily right now, Ronnie communicates through the use of facial expression, eye contact, and he'll often try and take you and lead you to where he wants you to go. So, for example, if he wants to go out and look you for shoes, if he wants food, or if he's thirsty, he'll take you to the kitchen. My only concern with that is that as we continue to possibly expand the settings that he goes to, and maybe he starts to interact with others, maybe in a physical environment, sometimes when somebody grabs you and takes you somewhere, that can sometimes be seen as an aggressive act if you don't know where that's going to lead. And so giving him strategies that are going to be successful with staff in the home, but also as he continues to interact with people outside of the home as well, and something that he can use and generalize across settings and be successful with. Rita, do you want to highlight quickly on what the system looks like right now?
Sure. So I guess ultimately the goal with Ronnie is that even though he is able to communicate through nonverbal means, is not readily understood by people that are not familiar with him. And so if we're trying to have a goal of him developing relationships in the community, even though he may never be able to communicate verbally, there's alternative ways in which we can augment his communication so that he can be understood more widely by other people, and in the ways that will help to keep him safe as well. As a starting point for Ronnie, we are using more tangible items that he can work with, and the idea of using the picture exchange system is to more explicitly teach him what communication is and how he can transfer something in order to get something that he wants or needs, and understanding that transaction. One point that I want to make briefly is that I think it really is because of the behavioral interventions that have been done in the past year or two in working with Ronnie that he's been able to be calmer, to be able to attend more to what we're teaching him, that is allowing him to be successful in now expanding his communication. So this just helps to highlight how those regular behaviors are so helpful. Right now, we're working mainly during mealtime because we know that he is highly reinforced by food. And what we've been doing right now is we've been having a food icon that the house manager actually helped to create, which it shows has a bag of animal crackers on the card. So it's a very tangible object. And so he has to give that card to either the BA or myself or a staff member, whoever's working with him, in order to have access to food. And he picks that up very quickly, as is typical. What we're also trying to teach him too is perseverance. So understanding that in order to communicate something, sometimes instead of it being like someone right next to you, maybe he may have to walk to you to be able to communicate. Helping to teach that intent of communication. We're also working with him on discrimination skills. So understanding, hey, this is a picture for animal crackers. This is a picture of a different type of food, or maybe even something that isn't food at all. And what is his ability to be able to attend enough to say, hey, I want the animal crackers, I don't want the bathroom or whatever the other item is. And so ultimately, our goal is to be able to have a more robust system by which he can communicate those needs. And I think that leads in pretty nicely with the last slide that Sarah can take over. And then we're trying to help Ronnie be able to develop more relationships and activities that can socially be very meaningful to him. Interacting with people that are more in his age group as well. He's a young guy. He's only like, what, 25, 26? He has a lot of life left to live, and he has a lot more to learn. So.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, this is just kind of what we're expanding. Rita highlighted on a lot of it. But just to give him opportunities in different settings and different experiences, like Beth said, when Ronnie's playing like guitars for the, I don't know if it's for the first time, but just seeing that and just giving him different experiences, kind of finding things that he might not even know he likes yet. So that's where we plan to go.
Well, this has been wonderful. I'm sorry that we've run out of time here today because this was such an interesting presentation, and I just love the way the interdisciplinary team has worked together on this. I think you get the best results when you do that. I love the way that you're using things that work initially, but then you're fading back to help you become more independent and to do these things without as much assistance. And I like the way you're also focusing on very small situations. Instead of trying to fix things across the whole day, work on transitions, work on mealtime stuff, work on things in a specific situation where you can really have an impact and to measure that over the course of time. I think those are such wonderful things that you're doing here. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Everybody else on the team, just want to thank you so much for being here today.